Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa Life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The Spa and Spa Life, the SPA, is for seek power always, that power within you to do your deeper work in the world. I am so thrilled for our next guest, and I have to ask our listeners, do you know anyone who's worked with Sir Elton John or Elon Musk, sent people down to see the wreck of the Titanic on the seabed, or closed museums in Florence for a private dinner party, and then had Andrea Bocelli serenade them while they eat their pasta? Well, you do now. Quoted as the real-life Wizard of Oz by Forbes and Entrepreneur Magazine, Steve Sims is a best-selling author with BLUEFISHING, The Art of Making Things Happen. He's a sought-after coach and a speaker at a variety of networks, groups, and associations, as well as the Pentagon and Harvard twice. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
This is so fun. I love just the fun nature of how you approach life and what it is that you do, and particularly about the art of making things happen. When so many people focus on the science of the, do this and do that and the next thing here, what is it about the art that allows you to make things happen that other people seem to find elusive?
I think it's one part stupidity, two parts curiosity. As entrepreneurs, we're all a bit dysfunctional. We're all a bit twisted. And as that entrepreneur, we don't like things and we're aggravated. Why does it have to be like that? Why do I have to tick in a box? Why do I have to turn up at 10 o'clock? Is the world going to explode? We question things. And as kids, we're always curious about things. They say that a child learn so much in their early years because they're curious. It's only as we get older that we just start to dull it down a lot. So I've always remained curious. Okay, a client wants to do something. How incredible can I make it? Why can't it be that? Why can't it do that? And I demanded of it. So it's a combination of curiosity and aggravation that's really enabled me to pull off some quite spectacular things that even I sit there every now and then and go, did I really do that? How did I pull that off? And I think those are the reasons.
Well, I totally appreciate the curiosity. I've been watching my 3-year-old grandson lately, and just a day with him is like, I have no idea what we're going to do next. I'll have intentions of what I think I'm going to do. And he's like, let's do this and let's take off and do this. And, it's just that constant curiosity of a child and being around that. I love recently you had shared when you went to Florence to share the David with your wife, Claire, about the bits and pieces that Michelangelo had did as far as showing his failures. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think, especially as entrepreneurs, there's this, everyone sees the end product, right? And everyone wants to be the end product, but it's messy in the middle. It's that getting there aspect and being able to show that those failures and actually learning from that along the way.
Yeah, it's I think the academia needs some help on its plan. So Michelangelo's David, the most iconic statue in the planet, more famous worldwide than the Statue of Liberty. It's housed in the Accademia di Galleria Museum in Florence. As you walk through the front door and turn right, you are funneled down, and at the end of this corridor is Michelangelo's David. In fact, the second you enter the museum, you can see it, which means it takes your attention and you look away from, I think it's about 8 to 12 blocks of marble either side here that are what Michelangelo practiced on. Now, everyone walks in, they go, whoa, and they walk towards it and they overlook it. Now, when I took it over for the dinner party, I had hours to be able to wander around this museum. And those items I found to be the most compelling because there'd be a block and there would just be a hand, an arm, a leg, a torso, a neckline. And he was practicing, he was trying things. Yet as you walk into the museum, you miss it. And so I've always thought that they should put it in reverse. You should walk in, there's David, and there's how it came about. And that I would find, if they worked it in reverse, I'd find that more compelling. I was lucky enough to have so much time in the museum that I noticed that, so that I watched my wife as she walked through the door. It's how, you watch a child, see something for the first time. I watched Claire, and she did. She completely looked past, not for her fault, but completely overlooked these brilliant testing blocks that led up to this grandeur of David. So I made sure that we walked back and she got to see them again. So I've noticed that we overlook our nuggets. We overlook what we practiced on. A lot of people will try something, it will fail, and they will go, oh, they don't look at the fact that that was our practice session in order to get it right. Nobody started by carving David out of a lump of marble. They started by trying those little bits, the leg, the feet, the torso, and went, okay, build up. Now I'm there. People don't take credit for the amount of failures they got and how good that education was.
Yes. So, for people who are listening and they're thinking, okay, Steve handles Elton John's Oscar party, and these are the big extravagant events that you're partaking of, and they're seeing the grandeur, right? The end product, the David of what you're doing. What are they missing of those steps along the way that got you to that place?
Well, they're missing the fact that for a start, I started off as a bricklayer and a doorman of a nightclub. So they're missing out on the fact that I didn't have an ivory or silver spoon in my mouth, and that I left school at the age of 15 and drove around in my dad's work truck. So they miss all the fact that I spent most of my young life aggravated and couldn't work out why I knew how to work hard, but I wasn't working smart. I wasn't making money. I wasn't making impact. I wasn't making connections. I wasn't building up my network. I was just working on a building site and getting smacked by lumps of wood and bricks every day. So there had to be something else to it. Again, that aggravation of where I was, married to the curiosity of the what if, put those two together, and it gave me the cocktail of going out and failing at a ton of jobs to try and get me into a position. And every time I'd be fired, I'd be like, well, that shoe didn't fit. I now know. People will be like, well, why didn't you do this? And because it didn't fit. When it fits, it's seamless. It's easy. Yeah. So I went out trying to find that. And along the way, as I say, made a lot of mistakes. And it started off by getting people into parties, letting them in the nightclub that I worked in, getting to know them, starting to judge your front door, starting to get to understand what people are really after. And from there, it just grew. Little parties, birthday parties, product launches, to ending up working for the Kentucky Derby, the New York Fashion Week, Elton John, and a bunch of other.
Yeah, I love that, because
Sorry,
a lot of times,
sorry.
Say it again.
Sorry, the camera froze for a second.
No worries. So, a lot of times people want to sweep the failures under the rug, but if you actually look at those failures as they were indicators, right, about what you could do different and being curious and being able to shift things a little bit. And part of your focus is, around talking about like passion, right? About passion being the ultimate currency of life. How is it that passion, how does that drive you? And how is that people come to you, to fulfill those passions?
I wasn't aware that there was any kind of passion until later on in my life. But when you walk into a room with focus and passion, it's very hard for someone to ignore you. And so if you come in so kind of like, we need to do this, or wouldn't this be wonderful? There's some kind of drug that you look at that person and go, I want a piece of that. It's like when you're I remember being at a bus stop in Japan, and there were a bunch of people next to me. I didn't know them. I had nothing to do with them. As I say, I was at a bus stop, and I was with my buddy, and he was English, didn't speak Japanese or anything like that. And all of a sudden, they had shared a joke or watched something on a video or something. They started laughing, and my friend started laughing. It was contagious, that this laughter here. And I said to him, did you get the joke? And he went, no. I said, so what are they laughing at? He went, I don't know. I said, what are you laughing at then? He went, I don't know, but it's funny. You're just suddenly consumed with it. So if you can actually find something and go, hey, I really like this. I really want to do this. I really want to be part of this. And you've got that all-consuming, addictive passion. You'd be surprised at how many people just get on that and want it and desire it.
So what's something that makes you laugh?
Loads of things made me laugh. A good joke, a bad joke, dad jokes. I like funny stuff. I'm not a great one for pranks. I find that the new era of kind of like making someone look stupid, I don't like that. You know, that doesn't. I hate humiliation. I hate someone else being humiliated. But I do like a good joke and a glass of whiskey.
Well, and you spend so much of your time fulfilling other people's passions and things that they want to do. Is there anything, you know, on your list that you still want to fulfill?
Yeah, but I was never a big glamour boy. I was never the guy that really cared about doing. I was never the guy that cared about doing all of the stuff that I have done, which is weird. I never expected to be, you know, walking down the white carpet with Elton John at his Oscar party. You know, I never expected to be doing that. I never cared about doing it. You know, I'm the guy in a black t-shirt that likes to barbecue and garden. But what has happened is understanding the secrets of success has now given me the tools to be able to coach, speak, train, and help other people do it and actually help them create impact. So I have no care about, you know, drinking a whiskey on the International Space Station or dancing the night away with Lady Gaga. My care now is about trying to find entrepreneurs that, again, part aggravated, part curious, and helping them create the impact that they need to create to build stability, confidence, and clarity. That's my excitement now. It isn't going to a fancy party. It's helping people get bigger.
Now you're famous for your black book of billionaires, right? And you know, knowing kind of the things that you've experienced, right? You've got to see behind the scene the things that they have failed at, the things that they've been successful at, and so you've seen the whole spectrum of that. What has been your biggest lesson that you've learned from just the overall of being in and around billionaires? What would you do like them, and what would you not want to do like them?
We want to listen to them for a start because, you know, they failed more than you. You see, the daft thing is, if you stick it, and I'll actually tell you a story, which will probably answer it even better. When I was growing up, I didn't know anyone with money. I also grew up at a time that we didn't have YouTube and Instagram, so I didn't have any of those things. And I went to the pub with my buddies one day, and there were three of us, and all three of us had motorbikes. So we walked into this pub with a crash helmet in our hand. And there was this guy in the pub with like the pretty girl of the town. And this guy was like the Richard Branson of my area. You know, he had a grocery store and he had a gas station. And as far as we were concerned, this was the richest guy on the planet, you know? And we walked into that pub. And we could afford, probably between the two of us, or between the three of us, maybe 4 beers, you know, and then that would be it. And as I walked in, one of my buddies turned around and went, "That's so-and-so." And we'd all heard this guy's name, but I'd never actually seen him. And he pointed at him, and I thought, he's rich, I'm not. I'm going to go and talk to him. So I walked up to him, and I started chatting with him. Now, he looked at me like a weirdo, but he was just ordering a beer, and he turned around to me and he went, "Do you want a beer?" And I think it was a case of, I'll buy him a beer and tell him to get lost. And I went, "Yeah, all right, cheers." So he bought me a beer. So here I am talking to the richest guy in my neighborhood, and I've just got a free beer out of it. This was like major success to me. But as the guy asked, "Did I want a beer?" Before I answered him, I turned around to ask my buddies if they wanted a beer as well, and then we would all get a free beer. My buddies were at the other side of the room, leaning up against a wall. You see, I had taken the chance to speak to this guy. These guys were terrified of him. And it taught me, that guy that I was talking to, I honestly can never remember the conversation that I had with him. I know that it was a good enough conversation. He ended up buying me another few beers, But I'll always remember the biggest lesson I learned is that there are people that are repelled by success and people that are attracted because of it. My buddies were scared. Me, I wanted it. And I always did that. I always went forward. And here was the dumb thing. Every successful person I have ever met wants to have a conversation. They don't want to be sold. They don't want you going, hey, you know, I hear you in this business. I've got an idea. They don't want that. But if you can have a conversation and go, hey, you know, what impact are you trying to create? Why is that important to you? Hey, I saw you did this. Are you enjoying what you're doing? You know, what have been the 3 stumbling blocks you've gone through? If you have a conversation, but a lot of people are scared to talk to rich and successful people, yet strangely enough, successful people are probably the most open-minded of us all and want to engage in conversations to see a different viewpoint, a different perspective. So it's very, very strange the way that a lot of people are scared to talk to these people that actually want to talk to you.
Absolutely. And I so appreciate that. And that's one of the things that, you know, and that kind of segues into, you know, how you and I connected in the book Impact, where we're both authors in here. And I love your acronym in here about the GFS, which is go for stupid. And you talk about taking risk, right? It's like, what are you willing to do that the person next to you is not willing to do? And, you know, I got to see this over and over again so I was a police officer and I also worked undercover. So I did things that I never thought I would do, one in the course of my job. But then when I started realizing that, you know, if you just did something and, you know, you just figure it out, right? And you kind of talk about being the master of just pulling shit off, right? And, you know, I love that because you don't know until you do that risk and you go out there and you learn something from it. And I think that that's actually part of the fun, right? Is being able to discover that and putting yourself out there and having that happen. So, you know, from just that first conversation, did you find it much easier then to go up and talk to successful people? Or did you kind of realize, hey, they're like everybody else and there was always something to learn from someone?
I had a fear, and I think all of us have fears. But it's how we respond to those fears that is the important thing. Now, for me, I never got anything out of the conversation with the guy. As I say, I cannot remember anything that he told me. I have no idea past me getting a free beer. But I was terrified to always be that couple leaning up against the wall, not making a show of it, not making an opportunity, not creating impact. And I remember a good friend of mine, Joe Polish, once said to me, if you want to adjust your perspective for fear, then this is probably the best paragraph I've ever heard to help you with it. He said, the definition of hell is to man or woman that you could have been. And I thought to myself, that was so powerful. I don't ever want to miss out. I don't ever want to lose out. My fear now propels me that any opportunity I get, I'm going to jump into. Any conversation I can have, I'm going to do. Any podcast I'm invited on, I'm going to jump onto it. I'm not going to miss out on the opportunity. And I think that's what a lot of successful people do. They grab opportunity. They seize that moment. They seize that impact. That's just a mindset shift. And so I've always had that mindset change since I met those people.
Yeah, I love that. You know, one thing you've also kind of talked about is that no is not an answer. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about that because people talk about, being clear about your no and having boundaries around no, and you know, people are going for yes. How do you utilize no as just not being an answer?
Don't ask the question. You know, that the funny thing is, no is the shortest word in language. It's also a word that no matter what language you speak, they know what it means. Okay. You can say no in Chinese, you know, German, anywhere in the planet, and they know it's a no. Okay. Right. And they know that's the end of the question or the conversation. It's also a knee jerk. If I say to you, hey, can I have this? And you haven't quite heard what I've said, your instant reaction is going to be, no. It's just an instant knee-jerk reaction.
Right.
Yet if I say to you, hey, I'm really looking forward to doing something with this person. Hey, what would it take for me to get you to make the introduction for me? Now, by asking a question framed like that, not will you make the connection, what needs to happen? What do I need to do to get you to make that introduction? You can't turn around to me and go, no, because you sound like you're an imbecile. Because it's hey, what needs to happen? No. It makes it sound as though you don't know how to get your language across. The downside is that the second you allow someone to say no, then you now have to fight to get them back up to an even keel again, to get them to then agree. You're giving yourself, it's like basically digging a hole before you climb up a hill. So don't ask a question where 50% of the probability is going to lean towards an answer that you don't want. You know, if it doesn't matter to you, hey, that's no liability. But never ask a question where you stand to have any kind of liability. Rephrase your question. If you don't like the answer, you're asking the wrong person or the wrong question. And if you're getting a no, it was your fault for asking the question in the first place.
I love that. You know, especially that part about you're like enrolling them into it, right? It's almost like this conspiracy of like, how can we do this together, right? And kind of making it, that's where you're kind of eliciting that passion and enrolling, because everybody wants to be the good guy, right? You want to be like part of helping. And so by positioning it in that way, you're like going, let's go do this together, right? Versus like, hey, can you do a favor for me, or can you do this or whatever, and put it all on them. When you're enrolling someone, it's like, okay, it's this conspiring together about how we can do something together. So the energy behind it's way different.
Very different, very, very different. You want to wrap them into the story. You know, oh, wouldn't it be fantastic if we could do this? Wouldn't it be wonderful if in 5 years' time, you meet someone on the street and you tell them the story of when you were involved with this? Wouldn't that be brilliant? So now all we need to understand is, how do we do it? So what needs to happen for us to be able to achieve this story tonight? And if you do it like that, you've wrapped them in, you've got them committed, and you've not asked a question that they can go, no.
Right. Which is probably someone you don't want to do something with anyway, if it comes down to that kind of personality or those kind of things. And, you know, with so many people coming to you with requests, and you can kind of pick and choose with that, I'd love for you to share kind of some of your philosophies around how you choose, and particularly your chug test.
My chug test. You know, it's weird. That was a stupid moment that I've in conversations with incredibly powerful and famous people that have gone, what's this chug test? And so here it is. I had a very bad moment in my life where that little doubting devil had got on my shoulder, and I was starting to worry about how I looked and how I sounded. Now, I'd never cared before, but for some reason it bothered me now. So I changed me to be someone who you would like to do more business with, ignoring the fact that you're already doing business with me. So it was a very, very stupid time. So what I did was, once I came out of that and I realized they didn't like who I had become, and I was losing my connection with those people by trying to be someone I'm not, which basically by defact made me a fraud and a fake. I thought to myself, if I can't chug a beer with someone, I don't want to talk to them. So I woke up one morning and this very vivid dream came in my head. And as I woke up, I made a note of it. And I came up with this philosophy that I told at the time, back in 1997. I told a few people about this and it's just ballooned. So what I did was, I thought to myself, okay, the chug test. If you are walking up the high street and there's two lanes of traffic, busy traffic, and on the opposite side of the road, walk in the opposite direction, is someone in your life, a friend, a colleague, a accountant, a business partner, a client, anyone in your life, do you, A, quickly look in the window and pretend as though you're looking at a new mattress while secretly checking out the reflection? Once they've walked past, you then avert your eyes back to the path and carry on walking, pretending as though you never saw them? Or do you, B, run across 2 lanes of traffic to jump in front of them and go, Greg, let's have a beer? If it's not the second, get them out of your life. And that's the chug test, which I have fired so many people, accountants, relationships, family members, by going, if I wouldn't run across the road and jump in front of you and go, it's good to see you, man. You know, even if I saw you that morning, it's good to see you. Should we grab a coffee? You know, if you're not willing to do that with that person, they're the wrong person in your life. So that ended up becoming a silly little story that I told someone. We jokingly called it the chug test. And now I've literally walked into meetings and stuff, and they've gone, you're the boy with that chug test. Tell us about that chug test. And I did a training session for a Fortune 500 company up in New York, and it was their HR department. And about an hour of it was they had dissected and reverse engineered the chug test. And they brought me in to tell the story. And apparently they'd built it into a training structure. And I'm like, how the hell has my little drunken dream woken up, turned into a training program in a Fortune 500 New York office? But it's crazy what creates impact and what gets people to move.
Right. Well, I think it's the modern day, you know, who do you trust and who is it that you want to spend time with, right? It's the you know, Carnegie whole thing about who you like, trust, and know. And, you know, when people feel that and they actually want to spend time with you, I mean, you know, we've all had the clients where it's like, okay, this isn't working. This is not the you know, yes, you can help them, but do you want to? And are they really enrolled in wanting to help themselves, right? And so there's that comes up. But, you know, I think that the clients that are just have that passion and have, you know, the fire and just fun to be around, it just doesn't even feel like work when you're with them, because it's just like, oh, I can hang out with them all day long. Like, bring it on. Let's just make that happen. I think it's so fun. And I think the more personal you get with those people, it's like there's that blur line between business and personal life, because life is short, right? And who we spend that time with and what we do things with really does matter. And, you know, recently you did a talk where you talked about receiving handwritten notes and just that whole feeling around receiving something personal. Can you talk a little bit about that?
We've come into a very automated transactional society now where everything it's just fake. You know, we've got fake pictures, we've got fake news. So we distrust everything. And then we get a letter in the post with a fake writing on the front of it. We can see through this. When someone takes the time to handwrite an envelope and to put a piece of paper in there, and it's not a computer that's actually folded the letter to clinical precision and inserted it and sent it, you notice that the imperfections make it very, very crystal clear that it's a person that took the time. Yeah. And today, all we want is to feel that we are respected enough that you took the time. How many times do we get an email and our name's misspelled? Or, you know, someone sends us a message on Twitter and then yells at us that we didn't respond to them. We're like, do you know I have a life? I didn't see the message. But when someone sends a letter, it's different. Sending someone a book, I'll go to an event, and if I see an author and I like it, I'll buy a bunch of books, and maybe if I can, get him to sign them or her to sign them, and then I'll send them to my clients and go, hey, I saw this speech and it was really good, and they had a book, I bought it. Here it is. Now, I'm sending anywhere between a $5 to a $20 book to a client that's going to make me anywhere between $5,000 to $250, and I'm showing them that I care enough to be thinking of them when I'm not around them.
Right.
Even just by sending someone a letter going, hey, we often get, bombarded with emails. I just wanted to send this letter because I need you to be aware that I care.
Mhm.
You imagine you get that in the post. I will often send, this is just me being ridiculous, but I will often send a bar tab. So, at the end of the night when you're at the bar and they send you your receipt and you get the other copy,
Yeah.
well, it's always got the last 4 digits of your credit card on it, but nothing else on there. On the back of that receipt, I will often write on there, hey, Jimmy, I had a few whiskeys tonight, but 2 of them I was thinking of you. Chat soon, Steve. I'll put that in an envelope. I will post it to them. And they will just one day just go, and they were like, yeah, I got your bar tab, Steve. I'm glad you were thinking of me. But the impact it creates.
Right. It's memorable.
I had one client this year, had the client for 2 years. This year took me to a side in one, I run events called speakeasies where I get all my private clients together. He took me to the side and he went, Steve, I don't know how to go into this, but you've never sent me a letter. And I'm like, hang on a minute. I've had you in my client bank and I've had you as a client for 2 years. Nowhere in the world I've not sent you a letter. And as I travel the planet, I literally travel, and on my phone, there's like a spreadsheet on there, and I'll buy a whole bunch of postcards and send them out, So I know there's no way in the world I haven't said. Do you know, the funny thing is, he moved and his credit card was registered to his old address.
Wow.
So when I told him about this, he found out about it, and there was all my letters, my bar tabs, my postcards, my magazines, my books, everything I'd sent him over 2 years. But it was that important to him that he was hearing the murmurs about all the stupid stuff that I send, that it upset him enough that obviously I didn't care enough about him to send it.
Wow. Wow. And those are the memorable things, right? That people remember.
Yeah.
So speaking of creating like memories and environments, one of the things I always like to ask my guests is that, the type of life that we create, right? In our home, right? That we live life differently in our bedroom versus our office or our kitchen. So what is your favorite room in your home and why?
Here. And you don't know where I am, and I'm not going to show you too much of it, but I'm actually in my I have to speak American here, my garage. We call them garages in England, but I'm in my garage and I've got an audio set up on a motorcycle lift. So I collect motorcycles. So at the moment, you can see my background and my microphone, but I can see the usual mandatory light ring and 12 motorcycles, crash helmets, my fridge, some bottles of whiskey, my leather jackets. And so for me, it's like my toy den, So I'm sitting here and there's a big window over here that looks over one side of the garden. There's another one that looks over the hills. So to me, I'm working while looking in my toys, being in my little toy shed, looking over a great view in South California. So I would say it's here.
Nice. So fun. I happen to be in my garage too. I've got my little curtains here and my little toys with my grandkids over here close by as well. So it's fun, with the things that we create. It's the memories that we have and things that bring our smile to our face with what's in our place and what it looks like. And, I know that we could be talking all night here, and I just so appreciate your time and your wisdom. And I know that people are going to want to follow you and stay in contact with you. How can they best do that?
Well, I'm really easy to find. I'm Steve D. Sims, and D for dog or D for dashing, whatever you want to do. Steve D. Sims, and there's only one M in Sims. I'm Steve D. Sims anywhere that you consume media. If you want to go to stevedsims.com, if you want to go to Steve D. Sims on Instagram, Steve D. Sims on Twitter, I'm Steve D. Sims everywhere.
Wonderful. And we'll put those links here as well. And as you know, our theme for this year are people who are being a force for good. And how is it that you are being a force for good?
Oh, I don't know if I am. I do things that I'm selfish. So I won't do anything that doesn't benefit me in some way. One of the things I do like to do, and I hate bringing this up because it looks like you're trying to get glory, but I go to prison a lot. And thankfully only ever for one day at a time. But what I do is I go to prison with a bunch of entrepreneurs and we help train inmates on how to take that hustle from the illegal side of the planet into the productive side of the planet. I do that because I get to interact with people that maybe didn't have the chance I did, maybe didn't live in the area that I did. And we all grew up in times that maybe if we'd have just turned left, maybe we'd have crossed that gray line, So sometimes it's not a massive thing you have to do to change trajectory and course. So I like to go in there. We do that a lot. Not doing it at the moment because of COVID, but very keen to be doing it again in 2022. But I'm the one that gets most out of it. It challenges me to speak to people that I would never normally communicate with. It challenges me to be in rooms that I would never normally be in. And it challenges me to strike up relationship and friendships and understanding from people that grew up in a completely different environment, time, and style than me. So that's what I like to do. But I'm being very blunt. I lead with it being selfish. It changes me. And so therefore I want it to change others. And I take about 40 people at a time in there. And here's the daft thing. I charge them $500 per person to go to prison. And yeah, so I have 40 people at a time actually pay $500 to go to prison. It all goes to the charity, just so it can mess with our heads, mess with our perspectives, and see grown men and women cry how much impact has changed in their life. So if you want to get uncomfortable, look me up, follow me, and come to prison with me.
You know what? I love that so much because you can learn something from anyone. And, I learned that as well being on the street because I came across of thousands of different people in lots of different ways. In fact, one of my, it hasn't aired yet, but it's going to be happening here at the end, is I interviewed Mark Sutton, who is the founder of the second largest blood gang in California. And he did... He went into prison for murder at 21 and has now come out and is actually working with the police department and helping people look at things from a different perspective. But he did a lot of programs while he was in the inside. That's a guy I think you would actually really like. If you're interested,
I should definitely... Intro.
I think you guys, he's an awesome guy because he really, he gets it, right? When he was inside, he really saw how he wanted to have an impact when he came out. So I love you talking about impact and being really clear because, like you said, you can take one direction and anybody could be off track in a different way. And to be able to see how you can take skills and be able to shift those and change those is a really important thing. And I love that you mentioned that you're selfish because I think everyone is, and they just don't necessarily say it. And I think that being selfish actually allows you to fill yourself up and do the things that you're here to do. I mean, I talk in terms of like spa life about, standing in your power and who you are, because if you don't have the energy to give to everybody else, right?
Perfect.
So, I think it works and I think it's a good thing. And I just want to thank you again for your time and your wisdom and your humor and just sharing your path.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. And for our listeners out there, this is, something I hope for you to share and get out there. If you have any questions, please put into the comments, whatever platform you're listening to this on. Tag both myself and Steve. He's everywhere. So, any big questions, put out there for us to do. And you know what? Send it out to somebody who you think just needs to hear this today, right? Because we don't always know the path. We don't know the one person who needs to hear this right now, especially in these crazy times. Just hearing a different perspective can give that bounce and spark to whoever needs to have it. So share it, get it out there. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. See ya.